okay, Cole? It's not too scary, is it? Right, so I've had a lot of interest in this TV, and deservedly so. It's pretty phenomenal. Look at it. It is probably the most mint condition Sony KV that I've seen in a long time. A little bit of dust on here, but super, super great condition. A little like minor scratch there, but aside from that, really nothing. Not a blemish on the tube. Beautiful Energy Plus star rated appliance here, and it's in such good shape. We still have our little door here with a video 2 input access for composite video and stereo audio. What we have is the Sony KV-27V42. This is from 1999 and was made in Mexico, and it has the BA4D chassis. That is a very, very good thing. So we're gonna open it up, take a quick look inside. I have to do some servicing before we do the good stuff and modify this thing. Right, here it is in the back end, and we are really clean inside, especially for something from 1999 that has undoubtedly never been opened. I've worked on this chassis before, and actually quite recently. I would say, look at this. This is something that's quite not right or great, is that connection. That is the ground connection. All the way from this power board, but I don't like that it's bent over and done like that. I don't know. I imagine that was probably done just right in the factory when it was installed, because how else would that have happened? Other than that, nothing looks... I mean, look at that. That is weird. Never seen that happen. Interesting. So, it's not really a big deal, but we'll make sure to straighten that out. This can be RGB modded. And also it can be component video modded, but we're just going to go for RGB this time. We're also going to check out the capacitors over here in the deflection zone, and then we have this little isolated power input block over here. We'll recap that, check the soldering caps out here on the neck board, the CV board. We just got to document on where all these cables go, although I've pretty much memorized it at this point. And then we can take this board out, service it, add that RGB kit, and check out some other cool things. And let's see if we get a zap here from the anode cap. Whoa, that was a huge zap. I didn't think it would, but dang, man. We're in here looking at board A. This is the main board, and I have done the capacitor kit and restored this, and it's ready for modification. And this chassis, again, is in multiple CRTs, so there's a lot of documentation on it. We're going to go in here and work on the OSD and inject RGB, as well as sync. We're going to add a switch for this one, so we'll have some manual switch to switch on the RGB mod. I also restored this board. This is the CV board. And that's the neck or CRT socket board. So let's take just a quick look in here where we're going to work. This is what we're looking for. We're looking for these two chips. This is a microprocessor and a jungle chip. And let's get this flipped around. We're looking for these three resistors. What we're going to do is we're going to lift the legs on these resistors. Now, in this particular model, we shouldn't have to change these three resistors, but we will lift the legs, and we will add some 1N4148 diodes. on this side where before or after, I'm not sure the resistor pattern, but that's what the directions are saying. So we're going to go ahead and set up, and we're going to remove these 3 resistor legs, and we'll pull them. And then if we look up here at the design for this particular set, that's the same area. This is one that I've done before on this particular chassis, and there's the modification I've done with lifting those resistors. So that's what we're about to do now, and let's see if there's something else in here that's helpful. There's the diode. We're going to do all that, but if we look over here too, we need to remove some components, and that would be right next to these legs. This one, it's R086 and 88 right here. We're going to remove, and we're going to remove one more, just like this one. So they're all over here. Let me show you on our board. That is up here, and we're going to remove them. That's that resistor, and that resistor. All 3 of those need to go. And that's what we're about to do now. Let's start here by removing these resistors by just adding some solder to each side, and just get it heated up. There we go. It's just like that simple. And then we can come back in here afterwards and clean this up. But there's that resistor. See it on the end of my tip of my soldering iron right there. It's just getting boiled right there. So we'll get rid of it. And that's the first one. Now we can get rid of this other one right here. Above it, same thing. You have to heat both kind of sides simultaneously to get those to come off, because you don't want to you don't want to burn these traces. So it's okay to take your time. Like I said, I'll come in here and we'll clean it up in a second. But that's number 2 gone. And then we're going to get this third one gone, and then we're going to actually remove the solder. See how I'm reflowing right here? We're going to remove the solder on those 3 points. But first, again, I'm going to come up here and we'll get rid of this one. There we go. There it is on the tip again. Come in here with the can always use this guy to just suck up any loose solder if you want, but we'll go back over that with some solder wick. I'm going to use my FR301 now to try to get the solder off of these points. Well, we got most of it off. Let's see if we still have more on there. Oh, there we go. So I'm just going to grab them and wiggle them, make sure there's nothing left in those points, and we are good. Okay. We are good. We can pull that through the next side. Before I do that, let's clean this rest of the area. Come in here with some solder wick and clean up these other points. Excellent. Scope here. Okay, so that's all good. I'm going to add a little bit back to this point. Not that it matters, it's unpopulated, but my OCD will kill me if I don't. Okay, there we go. Okay, these are our resistors. The top side should be, yep, should be able to pull it just like that, freely. Yes, sir, and yes, sir. And that step is ready. Now I can connect my diodes. All right, here's our diodes, and they do have a marking on them to tell which direction they are. That is the darker ring, or the black ring right there on this end. That end needs to go in these vias or holes here. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to stick all three of these in here, and I will then solder the backside of them onto the circuit board, and then it will be easier to attach them on this side to the resistor. So we'll just free float those in here for now. Get them all the way up there, it's fine. Do like that to hold them in place. There's the reverse side of those diodes. Okie dokie, and number 3. Come in here and cut these legs down. No, we did pretty good. Looks like one of these maybe needs to go a little further in. But let's see. For now, we can go ahead and definitely solder these points together, and then we will wrap them. As you can tell, I've already wrapped the components around each other. I'm just going to get some heat introduced in here, and a nice healthy amount of solder. A little bit more, and that's good. And then we'll trim these legs. Trim the other one. There we go. And that will be good. Do the same thing here with the middle one. Wrap that. Well, heck, we don't even really need to wrap it. Just set it like this, and we'll just add some. Oop, don't want to do that. Okay, there we go. Let that cool for a second. Squeeze there. Touch all that up. That's looking good. I mean, I guess it kind of looks good. I don't know. Still pretty ugly, but what we're going to do now is we're going to cover them in some protection. All right, let's get in here and add some protection. I'm going to just slip on some heat shrink tubing that I've cut up. That way these don't accidentally ground out against themselves or any other components. There's a lot of wires that are hanging inside this. I could probably just do two, but we're going to be neat and fancy, and we're going to do all three of them. Okay. All right. Now I'm just going to add some heat from my hot air station. Alright, this is how we are supposed to look. We've got our setup all protected in there. And look at that, nothing can really mess with that. So we're in good shape there. Let's install a resistor on a switch. So this is going to be a switch that's just an on-off switch. There's going to be a 1,000 ohm resistor in the line of that switch. And we're going to go from this point over here, in the middle here, through this hole right here on this connection over to the bottom side, and then that switch is just going to send in it's going to come through here and it's going to touch up to this point, R31 right there, R331, and this is the way the design for the switch mod is on. The last time I did this modification, that's how I put the switch in right here. And then followed that up again with a big beefy switch. We're probably not using that big of a beefy switch. Goes through that hole and connects up right here on R331. So that's sending in like 3.3 volts just to activate blanking and activate the mod. So normally with this mod you'd use a MUX kit. Sometimes, you know, where you just send the SCART signal in, but sometimes there's people have difficulty using a mister and getting it to sync. So just to bypass all that, we're going to add the manual switch in here. So we'll add that end of the switch to there, and then the other end of the switch will go ultimately up to this spot over here, the middle point right here on number 3. Well, somehow I have wound up with an even beefier switch. I wanted it to say on-off, and I ordered these massive 20 amp switches, which are just completely overkill for this little bit of 3.3 volts or whatever DC we're putting through it. But that's okay. Just give it this little beefcake version of the switch. And that'll give us something, I guess, easy to solder to here. So I'll do the same thing and kind of twist this here like that. We'll see if we can't get some solder to stick on that point right there. Oh yeah, look at that beautiful bean footage. Okay, come down here and get a little bit. Down there, that'll be beautiful. Cut that tip off right there, and there we go. That looks pretty nice. So what I can do now is I can just run a conductor from here to one point, and then from here to the other point, and that way we have a switch with a built-in resistance of 1,000 ohms right there. And I'll run those conductors, and then we'll put some heat shrink tubing or some protection on them. I've prepped things for the board to have the RGB added, and here's our kit from Sunthar. Sector Sunthar. Now this is a Type C kit, so our conductors will plug in here. Our SCART will obviously be here. We can plug our input in there. It's all soldered in right there, and then those values on the resistors are given to you from Sector Sunthar's website. They're pretty much all 1000 ohm, except for a couple 75 ohms, tying the RGB lines to ground. And then we have one diode. Make sure the diode is in the right direction. And that should be all we need. R11 is left blank because we're not using the blanking pin. So we're not going to solder that in. We're going to use our switch, which is right here and has been soldered into place. The only thing left to do is solder these conductors onto the bottom of the board, and we will go red, green, blue up here, as well as blanking. Over here we'll go audio, ground, and sync. And that should be it. Alright, I've installed all the conductors here. You can see purple is ground, left and right audio are gray and white, and then our yellow cable is our composite video sync. I've also got another ground cable right there. If we move on down this way, we've seen where we will inject our red, green, and blue. Then our blanking will be fed from our manual switch, which is right here. And then this is just a ground cable again, and then there's our manual switch. So now it's just time to go put all this back into the frame and let's test it out. Wow, so yeah, this is not working. This RGB mod is just not working. I've tried just about everything I know to do with it. I removed the switch and went straight over to where it's like blanking on the signal, but it absolutely hates it, and I'm just not sure what's going on. Like, check it out, I'm getting all kinds of video distortion while the stuff's just installed, which is not good. There's definitely something wrong with this mod. Alright, I've tried a couple different things here. I moved my sync over to this point, and then I have a jumper here for S-video detection. I cleaned all these jumpers, or these, up a little bit. I moved that blanking to there because I finally found a guide on here for this exact TV. I don't know how I missed it before. It kept sending me to a different TV that was a little different on the Sunthar website, and I think I had something wrong there. So let's see if this works. Alright, let's see what happens this time. It's powering on. Video is up. And we have no sync now. I've got the S-video plugged in. No sync on video 1, 2, 3. No sync, no sync. No sync, you stink. Okay, let's unplug that and see if that makes any difference. No difference. None at all. Let's unplug this. Oh, brother. Alright, let's pull the board and see what we can do now. So this is like 100% matching the guide now, right? There's all those things. The guide tells you to do what I did with those things, okay? All that's the same. And then, like, if I go down further, the input side, I did all this. All those ground points in sync and audio left, S-video detect, grounded. I did all that, see? Look, right here. It's all right there. So there's a ground, and there's the supposed composite video, supposed S-video detect, left and right audio. And it didn't work, so there's one more thing in here that I just noticed. If you scroll down, it says tip. We got a sync separator IC for switching the S-video. I'm not sure that this is the problem, but what we'll do is we will go into the service ID and change it. ID value 1 to 23. Okay, so well, let's put it all back together. I'm gonna cry. If this doesn't work, we're gonna take it out. I have one last idea, and We'll see. Alright, I'm sorry for the strobing. I've got it here. We're gonna change it. It's at 151. I'm gonna go all the way down to 23. It's pretty wild. 23. Then to write it, we press muting and enter. Okay. You see, that doesn't look right. I mean, the OSD definitely looks off. All right, let's get out of this and see if that made any difference. Turn that off and power it back on. And we got it in video 1 mode. And we got back to that other mode. We're back to where we started. Awesome. There's definitely something wrong with either the kit. Ugh, this is just disgusting, because it's syncing now, but it's just syncing this garbled garbage image. Alright, great news, everybody. That's actually RGB on the screen. I got it to work. I got it to work. And you won't believe what the problem was. Or maybe you will. Alright, so as I started to look at things closer, I came finally to the point where this, which is the conductor end that was injected like this. This is right over in here. That was injected over into the actual board. And I'm going to try to zoom in here, because what was happening was over on the side where we have the brown and red cable. The red has actually, the red pin is touching the brown cable. The brown cable right there. So what had happened is when I pinched the cable set together like this, the cabling was not perfectly level and aligned like it is here now. And when I pushed this point into this cable, it wound up bridging that cable. So I cut the cable and reinstalled it like this right here, and nothing was bridged. I checked to make sure that nothing was bridged down here with my multimeter. So everything's good. All right, guys, I've got the board out here, and I've just done my final touches on the modification. The kit's good. I went and reinstalled that switch, so I'm going to have manual blanking installed on this chassis just to make it simpler to use a mister with. All you have to do is have C-Sync on this board. And everything in here was good. At least I think it's good. I mean, it was all good on that last test run. I did clean it up a little bit. So there's blue, green, and red. There's blanking. I reattached this ground. Go down here. I cleaned this up a little bit more to make sure there was no interference. And we've got audio, left, right, ground, ground. This ground wire here is grounding the S-Video Luma detection, and then composite video sync right there, and all that is good. Let me make sure it's sync cable. I don't know, I might need to trim this sync cable up right here and reattach it. But all right, check it out. We're fully reassembled and we're working again. Here's our switch. Let me show you. Just have it on here. It's on mute mode because I don't want the sound to come through. You turn the switch off. TV's in normal mode. Turn the switch on. Bam, we get RGB. We get sharp old RGB right there. What do you think, Cole? Look how Gosh, I wish that dog would get out of his bed sometimes and make it. It's always just dirty bed and dirty dog. Just kidding. All right, check that out. How awesome is that? So now we know why everything went wrong and everything's back to good shape. Let me fit the SCART port and the switch port on the back shell. Be ready to be done with this thing. All right, I'm in here, and before I close the CRT up, the last thing I really need to do is try to fix the convergence up here in the corners. See how it's separated. The other corner down here looks really nice and tight. But this one, and then same thing with this one. What I'm going to try to do is I'm going to stick this convergence strip, which is just salvaged from another job. And what I'm going to do is, while it's on here, I'm going to actually stick this back in here, in this area right here. And then I'm going to set the camera up so you can see what happens. And if we can get a good spot for it, it should line those beams up. And once it does that, once those beams align, I'll put some adhesive on this, stick it in place, and then it'll have some nice tight convergence in this corner. Sticking it back there right now, you can see my arm. You see how that moves around like that? And oh, look, like if I can get it, just experiment. There we go. See, you can experiment with that. Oops. And see, if you get a good spot like that, our beams are pretty darn, I mean, they're not perfect. They probably will never be perfect, but this is much better. Whoop. See that? Yeah, that's better. I'm going to get this lined up and stick it in place permanently, because if it moves, it'll go back to the bad. Oh, just like that. See how much worse it was before? All right, let me get some stuff to stick that in place. Hey everybody, so here's a look behind that tube, and you can see I've installed both of these tabs. Both of these convergence strips have been set with two-sided tape and a caulk adhesive here. And so that has been done. And then there's another photograph of that. And I also used some adhesive on the freshly over the convergence rings, because sometimes those will drift and fall and slip, and then you'll have all kinds of problems with convergence. So that was all completed. Here's the finished outside. Now I did go and take this switch, and I had to find an appropriate place to install it on this Sony backside plastic here. And so there's two things I had to do. First, I had to find a spot to install that switch, but I also had to install the SCART, and that's where you'll see this rough cutout for a SCART shape right here. This is where I installed the SCART board. I have a couple screw holes here for mounting, and then that is the hole that's hand cut. So let's see how this all turned out. There's the hole for our switch, which is drilled out slowly by hand. And then there's the inside of that where it had to sit. You have to think about things like the clearance inside of the TV and how it's ultimately going to fit in here, because it can't impede with anything up in this area. That's where your inputs go. So you have to put this here. There's the board mounted. And like I said, after I finally figured out that issue, I was able to have no problems with the RGB, meaning that issue with the crimped wire. And thankfully, I didn't give up on this one, because I was really considering just stopping and not installing it, because I thought something was wrong. And it spent so much time, I didn't really want to give up. So I kept going. And that's what it looks like with the board and the SCART head installed right there. And like I said, thankfully it all worked out. This is a really clean television. This KV is one of the best from that 90s era if you love the bubble tube, and this thing was in such beautiful shape. It has a great sound system. Again, it's got stereo, so you got speakers on each side, remote support. It can have modifications done to it to even add things like component video. This customer did not want to do that, but after I adjusted the white balance, this is a good picture of what that white balanced screen looks like. You'd see the white looks really nice down here. I've also got some close-ups again of this monoscope pattern, this older one, and it's got great aspect ratio, really sharp here. I mean, in the center of this screen you can zoom in pretty far and get all the way to the beams and see how converged they are. Really great look for a consumer CRT. This is in the RGB, and then if we look back here, these are the corners that we corrected with the convergence strips. So you saw before when they had the color drooping and separating. Well, with those convergence strips, we're able to correct a lot of that in that corner. And you really will get to see scan lines on this set similar to a arcade monitor or even a PVM. It's not quite as defined as a PVM because the line count on these tubes is not up in that 600 range, but it's also 27 inches, so you get a lot larger screen. And the convergence can be corrected through the methods we use today, but also the geometry really can get phenomenal on this TV if you have it set correctly, and you have the yoke set in the right spot. That's always a great thing to have. And then the white balance really helps everything pop. Again, super thick scan lines you can see right here on your screen. And all in all, it's just a great tube, an experience to work on it. I think this is one of the top-notch Sonys that if you happen to find yourself with one available, you really should consider getting it. And, you know, this is not the easiest thing to work on, and it's not the easiest thing to modify, but it is one that if you find, you can commission someone like myself to modify it. And so that's what this customer did. And so you can arrange that through our shop here in Harrisonburg, Virginia. There's more information about that in the description of this video. You can find out more. I'll also post additional details about this CRT and some other RGB mods I've done for Sony stuff in the description. So if you want to follow up with that and check out some more things, you can take a look at those references down below.